everyone, and welcome back to Code Chat. I am Amy Dean. I'm the Vice President of Operations for SC Codeworks, and joining me today is Tony Baldwin, our Director of Pre-Sales and Implementation. If you are in the warehouse or e-commerce world, then you know what we're talking about here today. The holiday shipping rush is over, and just when you think you can breathe again, the returns start pouring in.
Everyone, glad to be here. And yep, post-holiday returns. It's not a trickle, it's a flood. And if you're not ready for it, it can feel like your warehouse just got flipped upside down. After the holidays, a huge wave of returns is pretty much guaranteed. But here's the thing. While you can't stop the returns from coming, you definitely don't have to put up with all the chaos and confusion that usually comes with it.
Right. Return season can kind of feel like cleaning up after a party that got totally out of hand.
Yeah.
There's stuff everywhere, the team's tired, and you're stuck figuring out what do you do with all these items that you never wanted back in the first place.
Well, that's totally true. It just turns into a reactive mess. You got different rules for every customer, labels are inconsistent or missing, and you have no idea what, something was even sent back. Everyone's just trying to move products as fast as they can just to keep the floor from disappearing under the mountain of boxes.
Right. But what if you could flip that script? What if instead of being a huge headache that costs you money, your returns process could actually be smooth, efficient, and maybe even make you some money? With the right tools and a good game plan, managing returns can really give you an edge. So before we dive in here, let's give you a quick preview of where we're headed over the next 20 minutes.
Well, we got some great stuff lined up. We'll kick things off by looking at post-holiday returns actually look like for most operations. And spoiler alert, it's a bit of a mess.
Then we'll get into why traditional returns processes tend to fall apart this time of year, and more importantly, how a WMS can really help turn that chaos into something much more manageable, from workflows all the way to reporting.
Talk strategy too, some smart moves you can make to reduce your future returns and recover more value from the ones that do come back.
We'll wrap up with a few creative ideas that we're seeing in high-performing warehouses, and this will be stuff that you can take back to your team.
And of course, we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So if anything pops into your heads, just drop it in the chat or QA box, and we'll get to as many as we can.
All right, let's get into it. Let's start with the reality check. Tony, what are teams usually up against right after the holidays?
Yeah, it's a rough time, especially in e-commerce. Returns come flooding in. Operations just aren't set up to handle that volume. You'll see docks backing up, items piling up with no real plan, and honestly, a lot of head scratching on what to do next.
Totally. I've seen it firsthand. It becomes a bottleneck almost overnight. But even with all that pressure, a ton of warehouses are still just winging it when it comes to returns. What kind of trouble does that cause?
Oh, it kicks off a whole chain of problems you could totally see coming. First, no one has a standard way of doing things. Without a system, everyone's just making it up as they go. How you handle a return sweater is completely different than how you handle a return TV, which leads to tons of mistakes.
And all that consistency has to slow things down, right?
Big time, big time. It creates huge bottlenecks at receiving. With every single item it needs to be returned, you got to figure it out from scratch. The dock gets overwhelmed fast. You got pallets of unsorted stuff piling up, blocking aisles, and messing up normal inbound shipments. Then there's the problem of deciding what to do with the item. Should it be repackaged? Does it need to be, does it need fixed, or is it just junk? So, without clear rules, these decisions are slow and people often get them wrong. And the big one, and maybe one of the biggest things, is you have no idea why the customers are sending stuff back. If you don't know the why, you can't fix the real problem.
So what does the bottom line hit from all of that look like?
The final impact is huge. You're losing inventory, your labor costs are going up, you're missing the chance to resell perfectly good items, and your customers are getting frustrated. All that really eats into your profits, and it can make your brand look bad.
So where do we even start trying to fix all of this mess?
Well, the fix is all about switching from a messy manual process to one that's organized, automated, and smart. And the engine that makes that happen is a modern warehouse management system. A good WMS is more than just a tracker. It's really the brains of your whole operation.
So we're talking about getting the decision-making off the floor and into the system.
Exactly. It usually comes down to a few core issues. No standard workflows. Every return is handled differently depending on who's working it. The next would probably be way too many manual steps. Paper forms, handwritten notes, verbal handoffs. The next would be no real visibility. You know, um, you don't know why items are coming back and where they're ending up. And the last would be, and because of all that, decisions have to be made on the fly instead of a strategy.
I've been in warehouses where returns just sit in a corner for days because nobody has the bandwidth to deal with them. And it's a
Right?
missed opportunity and it's totally fixable. Tell us about how a WMS really can help you get a handle on the returns process.
Well, it starts by letting you create dedicated workflows. A powerful WMS lets you build out a step-by-step game plan for any kind of return you can think of. You can set up different rules based on customers, products, sales channels. By building these rules right into the system, you get rid of the guesswork and you make sure everything's consistent.
So let's get into how we flip the script on this. We've talked about the chaos. Let's talk about the solutions.
Okay.
Tony, tell us what exactly you're talking about here, where a WMS can step in and make a difference.
This is where things start to get exciting. A solid WMS doesn't just help track returns; it actually drives the process. So you get things like configurable workflows, automation through system triggers, scanning to boost accuracy, smart disposition rules, and reports that help you stop repeat issues before they even start.
So basically, you're not just cleaning up a mess, you're turning returns into something strategic.
Exactly. Instead of reacting to returns, you're managing them proactively, which, with structure and logic that you just built in.
So let's break that down. We've got a few key areas where WMS can really shine. Let's start with a smarter returns workflow. What does that actually look like?
So with workflows, a good WMS lets you build different flows based on the type of return. You can set up specific rules for e-commerce, B2B, or individual customers. So let me paint a picture here. An item comes in and it gets scanned. Right away, the system knows where it came from, what shape it's in, and what should happen next. If it's still in good shape, restock it. If it's damaged, send it to a hold bin. You need a second look at it, create an inspection task. No guesswork, just smooth, predictable workflow.
And the best part of this is that it sounds like it's consistent. You're not relying on five different people to make five different decisions. The system just standardizes everything.
Right. But it's also flexible. So you can tailor the workflows to your operation. So if you're a 3PL handling multiple brands of products, it still fits in your model. Doesn't matter if it's a sweater or a flat screen, the WMS knows exactly what to do.
That's huge. You can be responsive, but you don't have to rely on case by case decision making or, having to ask the question, let me ask my manager what to do with this one, or, where should I take this?
Exactly. I mean, your team follows a process the system lays out. It's faster, cleaner, and way less prone to errors.
I love it. So let's shift gears here and talk about automation. System
Okay.
triggers might sound a little technical, but break it down for us. What does that really mean in practice?
Yeah, it sounds fancy, but it's pretty straightforward. Basically, when a return's scanned, say right at the dock, the WMS automatically kicks off the next steps. So based on the rules you set, it might send the item a rework or route it to a hold location or mark it for restocking. And the best part, it's all tied back to the original order. So you've got full traceability start to finish.
So the system is really doing a lot of that thinking for you. And so if an item's scanned, it knows what to do without someone needing to stop and make a call.
Exactly. You're building the logic once and letting the system carry it out over and over again.
Such a game changer. The fewer decisions that your team has to make on the fly, the smoother everything runs.
Right. And it reduces errors too. So people don't have to pause and figure out what comes next. The system just moves things along automatically, faster turnaround, fewer mistakes.
All of that adds up to better efficiency, better data, and honestly, just overall happier teams. So let's talk about scanning and labeling. This is a really big one, right?
This is huge. So scanning is basically the first line of defense against mistakes. When it comes to scanning, when returns come in, scanning helps you lock in the accuracy right away. You know exactly what the item is, what order it came from, and what it needs to go, in the next step of the process.
So you're talking no more scribbled labels, someone printing the wrong slip, handwriting it in.
Exactly. This system generates all that automatically. Return labels, packing list, even BOLs. You're taking the manual steps out of this process, and then, all those just slow things down and introduce errors.
Right. And, it's not just about speed, it's about accountability too. And I imagine that all of this makes training seasonal or temporary staff that much easier.
Oh, 100%. The handheld scanners basically walk the new team members through each step. So no more paper pick tickets, fewer mistakes, faster onboarding, especially when you're slammed during peak season. And yeah, you can even set it up for, so routing slips and return labels print as soon as the scans happen.
So smart, because you're not just improving the process, you're building confidence and consistency across the whole team.
One of those small upgrades, it actually makes a massive difference at scale. So it's
Absolutely.
something to think about.
So let's move on to something that often gets overlooked, and this is the reason for returns. I feel like this is one of those underused features that has so much potential.
Absolutely. And you're right, not enough operations are taking advantage of this. But think about it. If you can track the why something is being returned, that opens the door for all kinds of improvements upstream.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen this on the consumer side, like with Amazon, before I even hit buy now, it tells me if an item is returned often. And that is data in action right there.
Right. And that's the kind of insight that you can totally change the game. When you start reporting on the return reasons like wrong item, damage, size issues, you can dig into the root causes. Is it a picking issue? Is it a packaging problem, supplier inconsistency, or is just product just defective?
And that's how you prevent future returns. And, that's really where the real opportunity is. It's not just handling returns better, but trying to reduce them in the first place.
Exactly. But you've got to capture the reason in a structured way. If it's just someone writing damaged on a sticky note, you're flying blind.
All right, that's true. So let's say we are capturing return reasons in the WMS. What happens next?
Well, then it's time for disposition management. So that's where the system really steps up. Instead of leaving the decision up to each employee, you preset the rules. The system does the routing for you. So you'll know to restock it or send it to rework or quarantine or scrap it. It eliminates decision fatigue and speeds up everything.
And honestly, it's kind of funny as a consumer. Sometimes I don't even think twice about making returns, but when you work in this industry, you can't really not think about it.
Totally agree on that one. Every time I drop off a return, I'm like, man, good luck to the ops team on the other end of this.
Right? I'm the same way. You can't unsee it. All right. So this is the part that I get excited about, getting strategic with the data. So Tony, let's connect all of the dots here. What does it actually look like when you're managing returns in a smart and strategic way?
It looks like real operational wins. You're talking about getting inventory back into circulation faster, using return data to stop avoidable issues, redeploying labor during the post-peak lull, and honestly creating a better, more consistent customer experience.
And we've seen this, right? It's not just theory or something to aspire to. It's already happening in high-performing operations that we're working with.
Correct. And it's about turning what used to be a headache into an opportunity. And that starts with things like recapturing inventory quickly. The faster the process returns, the faster you process returns, the faster the product goes back on the shelf. That's margin you're protecting. The second thing would be, you're using returns, you're using return reason data to fix the problems upstream. For example, if 30% of your returns are from one channel and they're all due to picking errors, that's a flag to go look at your picking strategy. Without the data, you would never spot it.
That's exactly right. And we can't forget about labor either. Post-holiday, when the shipping surge has slowed down, returns processing becomes a great way to keep your team engaged and productive. You're not just clearing the dock, you're actually driving value.
Right. And the other big one, customer experience. If your WMS can track a return from the moment it's scanned to the moment it's resolved, and your customer gets that visibility too, that's a game changer. Faster refunds, clear communication, less frustration. Win
Absolutely
win.
leads to stronger loyalty. People remember the companies that made returns easy and not painful.
Couldn't agree more. So if we zoom out a bit, the real takeaway here is, a modern WMS doesn't just, process returns. It helps you learn from them. It captured structured reasons like wrong item sent, damaged in transit, didn't match description. And then it feeds it back into the business so you can improve picking accuracy, packaging quality, or even, product development.
So returns are not just a cost center. They can actually become a feedback loop.
Exactly. And that's the shift we're talking about.
So this is where we can really flip the narrative. We're not just reacting to returns anymore. We're using them to future-proof the operation.
That's where it gets good, though. So think about it. You reduce the future returns by fixing the root causes. You recapture inventory faster, getting it back into active stock. You improve customer experience with faster refunds, better communication, and your workforce is engaged during the slow post-peak stretch.
So instead of seeing returns as a loss, you can start to see the upside here in efficiency, customer loyalty, and even revenue.
Exactly. So returns don't have to be dead weight. When you manage them well, they can actually drive business forward.
Absolutely. So let's take it up a notch here. Tony, for the teams who already have the basics down, what are some of those next level plays that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, well, this is where things really get fun. So if you're ready to go beyond the basics and you have here's a few strategies you can consider. So one is return season forecasting. Use historical data to predict how many returns are coming in and just staff accordingly. No more scrambling for post peak seasons. Another is return value scoring. So prioritize high value or fast moving items so you can recover the inventory faster. Not all returns are equal. Treat the important ones with urgency. A next one is customer specific workflows. Offer VIPs or strategic partners a more tailored or even white gloved return experience. It's a great loyalty play. And the last is BI tool integrations. Pull in data by region, item type, fulfillment center to, spot patterns you might otherwise miss. It's an insight on a whole new level.
That last one is huge. The more granular your data, the better your decisions can be. And, hey, don't underestimate what disposition rules can do either. Automating where that return item goes, even if it's not restockable, still saves your team so much time.
Of course. And it takes pressure off your people from making judgment calls every time. Just follow the rules you build in the system, fast, clean, consistent.
Absolutely. So let's lay in the plane here. What is the one big things that folks should walk away with today?
Returns don't have to be a drag. They don't have to be a chaotic, this time of year doesn't have to be chaotic that everyone dreads. It's actually a huge opportunity, a chance to get value back, use your data to improve whole operations, give your customers a great experience that, makes them stick with you.
Yeah. And, if you're still managing returns manually or juggling spreadsheets, it might be time to start looking for a new playbook, especially with peak season right around the corner.
Totally. The teams that win are the ones who plan for returns, not just deal with them after the fact.
So true. So we've had some great questions come in ahead of today's session. Let's take a few minutes to dive into those now. We'll walk through a few of the most common ones that we've received. So first question here, Tony, how do I know if my current returns process is costing me more than it should?
Well, the short answer, if you don't know where your returns are or how long they've been sitting, you're probably losing money. So start checking the basics. How long do items sit before the process? Are things getting lost or misrouted? Are returns being restocked or resold quickly? Delays in any of these areas can mean it's eating into your margin fast. So also think about how your team's handling returns. Is it all based off of, hey, we've always done it this way? Or is everything manual or inconsistent or relying on tribal knowledge? That's a red flag. A good WMS should give you a clear visibility into return status, inventory location, and even the next steps. If you can't see it at a glance, it's likely costing you more than it should.
So what's the fastest way to implement returns workflow in a WMS?
Keep it simple. Focus on the most common return types, damaged items, wrong shipments, buyer's remorse, and build workflows just around those. Most modern WMS platforms have no-code templates or drag and drop tools that can make setup fast and painless. You don't need a development team. You just need clear logic and a plan. And if you're working with an experienced implementation partner, even better. They can guide you through the best practices, help avoid overcomplicating things, and get you live in weeks instead of months.
So good. Keep it simple. Have a good partner. Just take it back to the basics.
Exactly.
So the next question here is, should I customize return rules by customer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're a 3PL or a multi-brand environment, that kind of flexibility is key. You might want to offer, extended return windows for VIP clients, or require special packaging for certain brands, or apply different disposition rules like restock versus refurbish versus donate, based on the customer. The trick is doing it without creating chaos on the floor. A good WMS lets you use templates, tags, or rule-based logic to set it up once and scale it across accounts. You can get personalized service without a mess of the one-off processes.
So next question here, what if I don't have BI tools yet? Is reporting still useful?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. So you don't need a fancy BI platform to start making decisions. Most WMS platforms come with built-in reports that are more than enough to get you going. So start simple. Track it. Track your return volume by SKU. Look at returns by season, by channel. Measure how long it takes to resolve a return. Those are basic reports that can uncover patterns like repeated picking errors, product quality issues. They're the easy ones that are, you can miss otherwise. So once you're in the habit of looking at the data, you can always add more advanced tools later.
And I'm sure that takes pressure off of some people who don't have the BI tools yet, but they do have a report. They're not behind. They can still
Exactly.
drive value from that. Yeah. So last question here. What is the ROI of a strong returns process? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a great question. It's bigger than just cost cutting. For starters, fast return processes means, you're getting inventory back on the shelves quicker, which means more sales, less waste. That alone could be a big impact. But there's also improvements to the customer experience. If the returns are fast and easy, customers are more likely to, shop with you again. On the upside, for operations, you save time and, you reduce errors with streamlined workflows. That means your team's working smarter, not harder. You're not burning hours of manual steps and decision making. So ROI shows up in cost savings, but also revenue, efficiency, and long-term customer loyalty.
Awesome. There's a lot of value that can be driven from this. Before we wrap up here, if your WMS isn't really helping with returns, or if your team is still relying on manual steps and spreadsheets, it may be time to take a fresh look.
Yeah, returns don't have to be a burden. With the right system and workflows in place, you can actually become a source of value. You get better insights, smoother operations, and real opportunities for improvement.
So if you're wondering how your current WMS stacks up, or if you're just curious about how SC Codeworks handles returns, let's talk. We would love to hear about your setup and explore what's possible.
Seriously, whether it's a quick question or if you just want a full-blown demo, we're here to help.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And hey, good luck out there. We know that post-peak season returns can be wild, but with the right tools, you've got this.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you next time.